Alright, I know I look like Pirate Software, guys. I accept this. So today, we're going to make something productive out of that odd twist of fate. And what that productive thing is can best be summarized by the following statement. All creative endeavors are one big ego check that tests you to see if you are capable of practicing humility or not. Unfortunately, there are some creative endeavors in which one can become so well ingrained that even if they become the most insufferable person around, they can't be drained out of it by sheer public distaste. But generally speaking, especially in online spaces, we've seen time and again that creators are made and destroyed by their ability to handle criticism. I think that makes it a very important thing to discuss, both in terms of how you might handle it in real face-to-face conversations in the context of things like workshops, or if you yourself decide to venture into content creation of some variety. Those two things often tend to mix nowadays too, because one of the better ways to get yourself an audience as an artist is to do content creation. So obviously the comparison to PirateSoftware is one I made at the beginning because comments relating in some way to him are probably my most commonly received archetype of response that I get. And I'm not complaining, it's pretty funny, and I can't deny the resemblance in good faith. But the other reason that I bring it up is because the recent situation involving him is one in which that big word, ego, has become essentially the main theme. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, I'm not going to get into the drama, and I don't really care about meaningless internet personality beef, but the long and short of it is that there's this big streamer out there who left his teammates behind in World of Warcraft once, and he didn't accept responsibility for doing so. That spiraled into this huge thing involving claims he's made about his past in game development, and there's better spaces to go if you want extensive coverage of what actually happened with all of that. But it seems like people generally agree that the only reason anybody even dug into his past to find out all of the other stuff that's coming out about him is that everybody was upset that he wouldn't apologize for abandoning his teammates in World of Warcraft, because so the narrative goes, he had too much of an ego to make that simple apology. Who in this situation is right or wrong is something you can figure out for yourself. I'm not embroiling myself, I don't care, but that gives us the setup that we need for the actual discussion that I want to have. What we're concerned with today is the concept behind the decision to make or not make apologies like that, and why these decisions matter so much if you're a creative. The uniting factor, regardless of what type of creative you are, is the idea of putting yourself out there. Whether it is submitting your face and personality out to the world to be judged, or your writing, or your art, or any creative endeavor requires putting a piece of yourself out into the world and practically begging for the cruelest people out there to tear it to shreds and try to make you feel bad about yourself. It's a very personal business. Writers, for example, find ourselves hesitant to show our stories even to close friends and family because we're worried about what even these people we love and trust might think, much less complete strangers. And so people tend to have strong pushback to negative feedback, especially the first few times they get it. So someone like PirateSoftware puts himself out there as a streamer, they get popular, they have an overwhelmingly positive response, good community, all that sort of thing. He didn't have to deal with any particular concentrated negativity until the whole Warcraft deal, and so once it came, he dealt with it in a way that people seem to be considering generally unwise. Whether he did that because of a lack of experience in dealing with criticism or it being an aspect of a personality or whatever you may think is beyond the scope of my understanding or this video. But the important thing is that it didn't do any good for his image and didn't do well for how he feels either, I would reckon. So I'm hoping with this video I can provide some advice so that other people might be able to avoid negative experiences when they encounter negative feedback themselves. Because I promise you, if you put yourself out there, you'll get some negative feedback eventually. So as a background for myself and why I know about this, in case you haven't caught up on all the scattered JBat lore, I've been putting myself out there since 2016. JBat is not my first YouTube channel, and God willing, none of you miscreants will ever find the other one. Not that many of those videos are even public anymore. But in any case, posting my horribly made Let's Plays as a teenager definitely gave me some thicker skin against criticism for creative endeavors in general, and I fairly quickly began learning at age like 14 the lessons that many adults have not learned, and have thus crashed out publicly over. Yet I'll even gladly admit with this video being about ego that I did not succeed in that at 14. Defeating the concept of ego isn't an easy thing to do, but you can do it. And at this stage, we're going to move into a JBat's patented 5-step program for not looking arrogant while also being able to learn from your mistakes in creative endeavors. And the first of those is step 1, accept well-intended criticism. This is the most important and very much the one that you cannot pass go and collect $200 without. Everything follows this because well-intended criticism is often the first type you'll get from people who like, or at the very least are neutral towards you, and who actually want you to be better at whatever it is that you're doing. Whether it's writing, content creation, hell, woodworking, it doesn't matter anything that you're doing. And this one on your end is pure ego check. If you cannot accept well-intended criticism with a smile and consideration, this is where you need to start. Now, for those in my existing audience, often being writers and world builders, this can be pretty hard. Our worlds, characters, plots, and such are like our children. You can't criticize them, you just don't understand. You don't get why the kingdom of overwhelming complexity needs to have 37 different currencies and 17 different dialects for each of its 48 official languages. And I get it, I really do. Sometimes the critics are wrong, sometimes they really don't get it. But even when the critic is wrong about the specifics of a problem, they are usually correct about there being a problem. A great example of the way that I've learned that that is the case would be through my dad. He reads a lot, probably more than I do actually. He's always reading. However, he doesn't read fantasy, which is one of the main genres that I write. All the same, I still have him read the things that I'm working on because even if he can't diagnose the specifics of why something I wrote isn't working, he'll still be able to tell me that there's something off about a scene or a character, and him raising that red flag is still usually enough for me to find the problem myself. My girlfriend is another side of that same coin. She doesn't read as much as I do, but she does like fantasy a lot. She's really fantastically good at picking out specific details that don't work, and usually she can explain why, exactly why even. I honestly don't know how she does it. It's like magic, and so many things I've written would be significantly worse without her input. I consult both of these two in our weekly little book club thing that we do, who, it goes without saying, are people that I trust a lot, almost constantly. I trust them to be honest with me, which is an important note real quick. If you're going to have people from your personal life critique you, make sure they're people who will actually tell you if they don't like something, rather than people who would smile and thumbs up the room just because you wrote it, which will be 90% of the people in your personal life. Most of the people you know will not tell you if something you wrote is bad. Make sure you find that 10% before you have them read your stuff, at least if you expect serious criticism from them. But the point is that because I'm so used to their critique, I know when they're right and when they're missing something. I'd say like 95% of the time they're right, and maybe 5% of the time they're wrong, but even then, usually it's because of something that comes right after the thing that they're concerned about, or because of some mistake I made way earlier, so it isn't even really their fault for putting it together the way that they did. And if I wasn't able to accept their criticism, my creative works would be so unfathomably worse. And that's the only reason I even made such a big note of this point. Please, if there is anything at all that you take out of this video, even if you just clicked on it for PirateSoftware, it's this. Take friendly criticism from people well. They really are not trying to hurt you. So, step 2 of JBat's patented 5-step program for not looking arrogant while also being able to learn from your mistakes in creative endeavors is self-awareness. Here, I'll pivot to the YouTube angle, otherwise phrased as check yourself. This is representative of the moment when I turn off this camera that's recording this video. I unscrew it from the tripod, take my phone off of the very, very jerry-rigged stand keeping the script near the lens, so you can't tell too much that I'm looking at it. When I turn off my lamps and just turn on the normal light in my room, upload all the footage, and go back to just doing whatever I was doing before I started recording the video, which was preparing for a Delta Green session. Before I started doing YouTube, and this channel in particular, I really found myself a little caught up in the whole sort of aura of internet content creation, The feeling of being this big online celebrity, it's almost untouchable seeming. You've got hundreds, thousands, millions of eyes on the same person. It's an unfathomable thing. But now that I'm speaking to you from this side of the camera, I can confirm that nothing is really all that different from before. I mean, sure, I'm not a big YouTuber by any stretch of the imagination, but I am grateful for everything that I do have here, and the 14,000 subscribers that I have right now is more people than I could ever possibly hope to know or even really imagine. So don't take that as any sort of complaint. But when I'm not actively doing things for YouTube, I still do the rest of my life the way that I was before I started this channel. So the sort of idealized view of YouTubers that I had and that I know that a lot of other people have is really very, very strange to me now. While I am beyond humbled by those of you who support me, whatever form that might take, I'm in every sense of the word just a person behind a camera. I could be anybody else. You could be watching anybody else, and nothing would really be any different. I couldn't hope to know how other people in my position, or realistically in positions way beyond mine, think about this sort of thing, but to me it seems important to remember that any of you could be watching anything else right now or doing anything else with your time. You just happen to be listening to me talk right now. And when my books come out, and if you decide to read them, you could be reading anything else in those moments. Anybody with the motivation could be doing what I'm doing, and probably better than I am doing it. I don't want to harp on this point or drag it into melodrama or seeming ingenuine, so I might put a cap on that there, but self-awareness, I do think, is up there in importance. The third step in our patented plan takes on a very different vibe, as it is, don't fall for the rage bait. In case you're unfamiliar with that term, rage bait is essentially any negative comment left meant to incite you to respond with equivalent negativity. This is a very simple step with a very simple solution. Don't respond, don't delete it either unless it falls into like grotesque, bannable profanity or death threat territory or something like that. More or less, don't pretend it exists because it only exists to get a reaction, and any reaction only makes more of it. And while I could end the section there, I feel like that'd be a bit of a disservice because that's the advice everybody gives, and it might be a little more helpful to say why, because that doesn't come up quite as much. Rage baiting may come in many shapes, sizes, and forms, but there are essentially 3 angles as to why exactly you don't want to engage with it, all of which are pretty easy to summarize. The first reason is best explained by the fact that some attempted rage baiters I myself have seen made said attempts at rage bait by saying things like, "This guy must be gay," or "This must be a insert transphobic slur here." And while I don't happen to be either gay or transgender, it reflects more on them for thinking that those are rage baitable subjects than it likely would on their target. There are a surprising amount of people who try to rage bait based on the idea of, that person is part of an intrinsic demographic, imagine. The second reason not to engage with this sort of thing is the most obvious, and it is that it is only going to upset you and it becomes very cyclical. You try to come up with a clever response, and all that does is give the master of baiting another opportunity to strike with something else that'll piss you off. You respond again. So does he. You respond again, so does he. The problem is that rage baiters have no other hobbies, and you probably do. So you're never going to get the last word in, which is the only thing that could possibly hope to offer you salvation once you're sunk cost fallacy deep. So you keep responding, hoping they'll lose the comment chain, but they won't, because the further you fall, the more you guarantee the rage baiter really wants to continue it to see just how far you'll continue. So it goes on until you finally learn your lesson. But of course, the last reason to not fall hook, line, and stinker is because if you have a public presence, all of the above combines to make you look like an idiot. I mean, yes, the rage baiter will look worse, sure, but that's the equivalent of saying that a mother bear is worse than a guy who ran up and tried to steal one of her cubs for eating him during the attempt. Yes, it's unfortunate that the bear ate a guy, but the bear was acting only in its nature. The guy shouldn't have ran up and tried to steal one of its cubs. While that section might have been obvious to some, I figure it's good to continue spreading that message because it is always sad to see another one falling for the bait. But in any case, that brings us to the fourth step of our flawless system, which is to take accountability. While this might bring to mind our friend from the beginning of the video once more, it is a universal truth of pretty much any public figure that the best and most effective way to destroy your reputation is to refuse to apologize for something that everyone knows you did wrong, or to do that apology in a way that seems really disingenuous. Bad YouTuber apology is an entire trope of YouTube video, and pretty much every channel that covers the affairs of big creators has a video on the most infamous bad YouTuber apologies, and there are really a lot of bangers out there. But then there are the ones that never even make the apologies because their egos are so thoroughly burned into them that they can't even bring themselves to half-heartedly say they did something wrong, much less believe it. I mean, the internet is a place of lies and fake personalities. Every person you see on social media is in some way a persona that is distinct from the personality of the person making it. I am putting on a persona as well, as is everyone you watch. I try to keep mine close to what my personality is actually like, but there is always some distance, no matter who it is you're watching. I'm a fair measure more shy than my videos might imply, but all that is said to say that it is really difficult to tell when an apology for something on the internet is actually genuine, or really when anything anybody says on the internet is genuine. You're sort of taking people at their word, or you aren't. But that's why there's so much weight placed in the presence or lack thereof of the apology itself and the act of taking accountability. Saying sorry in of itself becomes important because, genuine or not, it becomes a gesture of at least acknowledging that people think that the apologizer did something wrong, even if the person themselves is too self-absorbed to actually agree with that notion, which at least is something. And for myself, I guess I would say that this is a part of the video I hope ages well. I'm not perfect, I've gotten things wrong in videos before, and I try to be good about that and responding to comments when people correct me on stuff. I never want to pretend that I'm smarter than I am, and in of itself, it's absurd for any YouTuber to pretend they're smarter than everyone in their audience, because I'm certain that amongst everyone watching the video, there are an unfathomable amount of things I don't and could never hope to know by sheer weight of numbers alone, aside from all the other reasons. So I don't know. If I ever put my foot in my mouth, just post the name of this video in the comments. I will gladly accept that form of cyberbullying. But to give this video a nice positive spin at the end, the last step is to always seek to improve. While this might apply to everything you do in your life, or it should, it really applies to how you manage your ego and the way to respond to negativity. Sometimes I'm tempted by the rage bait. I think everybody is to some extent. But while it's rare for me to even see it, the comments I get here are really very overwhelmingly kind. But still, when it does happen, battling the instinct to defend one's pride is something that doesn't always come easy. And it isn't hard to regress into being snarky or rude in those cases, just because it's just so easy to lash out in a way. It isn't satisfying to leave those kinds of comments blank or to not delete them. But even deleting them just signals to those people that they bothered you, and that's the one thing you can't do. It's like trying to cut away kudzu. You might just make more in the process. But that's the real lesson here, to myself as well. All of this is ongoing. This whole video was spurred on by a conversation with a longtime viewer of mine, Saint Sir Nicholas, who asked me about my thoughts on ego in regards to doing YouTube. I didn't really have anything helpful to say at the time. I think I only had something like, I don't know, just be normal, I guess, which, while I guess essentially true, got me thinking about this whole situation. Combine the humor of the PirateSoftware resemblance thing, and that led me to putting this whole thing together. So hopefully this has been some help to someone out there. You really can be your own worst enemy when it comes to working in these creative fields, because the drive to defend yourself is so strong, but it's a drive you really can fight, and I encourage you to do so. And honestly, with that, I think we've basically covered ego and creativity. There's probably more to say and plenty more examples of those who have learned about this the hard way, but this'll do for now. In either case, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any thoughts of your own about this, I read every comment and would love to see them. In addition, every like and subscription goes a really long way. We also have a Discord if you want to hang out with my editor and I, and a Patreon if you're crazy enough to want it, where we post all our videos a week early. On that note, I'd like to thank our patrons: Shadowrunner, Sonny, and Isaac Parrott, our Knights of the Inner Circle, and Greer, our loyal squire. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and remember, I've never worked at Blizzard.